Hi, my name's Wendy. At dinner, my father raised his glass, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "The best gift is you leaving forever." My brother laughed. My sister whispered, "Finally." But what they didn't know was what I found the night before: a hidden signature, a sealed letter, a betrayal bigger than just inheritance. They thought pushing me out was the end of it. They were wrong. Want to know what happened the next day? The porch light cast a warm, yellow glow onto the cracked steps of my father's house, the kind of glow that looked welcoming from a distance, but didn't hold up when you stepped into it. I held a pecan pie in both hands, still warm from the oven, covered in foil. It was my small peace offering, a tradition, something to place on the table that said, "I still care." Autumn leaves scattered across the walkway. They didn't crunch underfoot. They were wet, stuck to the concrete like forgotten promises. Inside, laughter floated from the dining room. It sounded whole, complete, like I wasn't missing. I took a breath, adjusted my coat, and walked in. "Wendy," my father said flatly when he saw me. No hug, no warmth. He nodded at the pie. "That store-bought?" "No, I made it." I set the pie down on the sideboard. The table was already full. Food, people, noise. Mason, my oldest brother, had taken the head of the table, talking over everyone about his new property in Nashville. Jolene, his wife, leaned in, hanging on every word like it was scripture. My other brothers were there too. I was the last to arrive, and the only one who had to pull up a chair from the kitchen. "Traffic?" Mason asked without looking at me. "Not bad," I said. Anyway, he cut in, "we're flipping this house near the Vanderbilt campus. Instant equity. Timing's perfect." Everyone nodded like they knew exactly what that meant. I tried to chime in, mention the promotion I got last week, my team lead role finally confirmed after months, but Mason kept talking. Dad leaned back, arms crossed, clearly proud. I waited for a gap, found none. "It's a big step," I said anyway, more to myself than anyone. "It means I'll be leading 3 new contracts this quarter." Jolene smirked. "Still single though, huh?" Laughter, just light enough to seem innocent, just sharp enough to hurt. I smiled. "Yeah, still single. Turns out, I don't need someone to validate my career." The air thinned. A niece passed me the rolls. I thanked her quietly. She smiled. She was the only one. I looked around that table, remembering how I used to sit at the corner, folding napkins into shapes. No one noticed back then either. I kept thinking, maybe tonight would be different, maybe not. After the plates were cleared, Dad stood up with his glass. The room quieted. Even Mason stopped talking. I sat up a little straighter, still holding on to the idea that he might say something, anything, kind. He tapped his glass with a spoon. "I've made a decision tonight," he said. People leaned in. "I think the best gift this family could receive is Wendy leaving this house. For good." At first, no one reacted, like it hadn't landed. Then, nervous chuckles. Someone cleared their throat. I didn't move. My hand clenched around the napkin in my lap. "I'm serious," he continued. "You come around here with your noise, your emotional messes, acting like you belong, but you don't bring anything to this family but drama. Quiet drama, sure, but it's still toxic." I turned to my mother. She looked down at her plate. Mason didn't say a word. Jolene sipped her wine. I couldn't breathe. "I just think," he added, like it was casual, "we'd all be better off if you kept your distance." A beat passed, then another. I stood, slowly, carefully. If I cry, they win, I told myself. If I shout, they'll say I proved their point. So I picked up the pie and placed it gently at the center of the table. "I baked this because I thought we were a family," I said. Then I turned, walked out the door. No one stopped me. The air outside slapped me awake. It was colder than before. I got in my car, pulled away from the curb, the house shrinking in my rearview mirror. No one called after me. No one chased. The silence in the car was louder than the dinner had been. At a red light, I remembered making paper leaves as a kid, taping them to the dining room walls for Thanksgiving. Dad ripped them down, muttering about clutter. I was 7. I thought it was art. Now I realized it was never betrayal. Not tonight. Tonight was confirmation. They never wanted me. They just tolerated me. Back home, the phone sat face up on the counter. Blank screen. No messages, no missed calls. I got in the shower, sat down under the hot water. Didn't cry, just sat. In the morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Wendy Allen? Yes. You're listed as next of kin. There's been an accident. I stood frozen, towel in hand. What happened? We need you to come in. They didn't say who. They didn't need to. I woke up still wearing my jeans. The seam had etched a line across my thigh, and the room was dim with that pale, dusty light that only hits when blinds stay half-closed too long. My coat was bunched on the arm of the couch, the edge of a pie crust flaking onto my sleeve like a reminder of what I'd walked away from. I sat up slowly. My head throbbed, not from alcohol, just from memory. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. Just a voicemail from my boss checking in, said she heard I left the dinner early and hoped I was all right. The message felt odd, like someone patting your back through a thick coat, meant to comfort, but it doesn't land. I rubbed my eyes and scrolled again. A few texts from coworkers with stiff emojis. Nothing from my family. Not even a mistake text meant for someone else. The silence wasn't surprising. In our family, silence had always been louder than yelling. That was the rule. If it hurt, bury it deeper. Paint over it. Smile. I learned that one young, like brushing dirt under the rug and then vacuuming the rug, doesn't mean the dirt's gone. The landline rang. Not my cell. My dusty, almost forgotten landline that hadn't rung in months. I stared at it, let it ring twice, 3 times. I almost didn't answer. Hello? A woman's voice, efficient but not cold. Is this Wendy Allen? Yes. You're listed as the emergency contact for a Mr. Nolan Hargrave. There's been an incident. We need you to come to Bloomington General. My stomach didn't drop. It didn't do anything. My fingers just froze. What kind of incident? I'm not authorized to share medical details over the phone. Your brother Mason is here. He asked us to notify you. Mason. That name snapped something loose in my chest. I could have said no. I could have hung up. Instead, I heard myself say, I'll be there soon. I grabbed the nearest shoes, keys, and jacket without thinking. My hands shook as I locked the door behind me. Driving through the old town was like watching a movie I never liked but couldn't stop replaying. The same cracked sidewalk outside the bakery, the same cheap radio jingle for Dale's Auto that's somehow still airing after 20 years. Trees half yellow, half dead, same as always. I passed the elementary school where I scraped my knee falling off the jungle gym. Dad told me, crying won't fix what already hit you. That voice lived in my head. Still did. I didn't know if I wanted him to be okay. That's the part I hated the most. The not knowing. The fact that even now, a small, warped part of me still wanted to show up. Still thought, maybe this was my chance to be seen. I pulled into the hospital lot and sat with the engine running, hands on the steering wheel, mind somewhere else. Then I killed the engine and walked in. Mason was pacing in the waiting room, his tie loosened, suit jacket thrown over a chair. His face looked drained, less like the golden child and more like someone trying to remember what solid ground feels like. We locked eyes. No hug. No how are you. Just the kind of nod you give someone you owe something to, but wish you didn't. A nurse called us in. I followed, not out of loyalty. Reflex. Dad was stable, unconscious, but not dying. Some kind of heart episode. They weren't calling it a heart attack. Yet, the doctor asked me if I was the daughter who handled his care. Mason said nothing. That silence told me everything. I said yes. The doctor handed me forms. Next of kin paperwork. My name was on file. Mason leaned forward. That must be wrong. I handle. The doctor raised an eyebrow. This is the form your father submitted 2 years ago. Mason looked like someone had pulled the rug from under him. I signed. Calm hand. No shaking this time. Inside, I felt, not vindicated, but present. I was no longer invisible. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want the job, but I wasn't giving it back either. I stepped into the hallway, needing coffee or just air. As I passed a nurse's station, I heard a quiet voice behind me. He kept saying something before he lost consciousness, one nurse whispered to another. Kept mumbling, she was right, over and over. I stopped walking. Was it about me? Was it about something else? My phone buzzed. Blocked number. Voicemail left. I didn't listen, not yet. I pushed through the hospital doors at dusk, fluorescent lights humming overhead, and felt like I was walking into someone else's story. I left work early, my desk abandoned with half-finished charts and empty coffee cup, because I knew I couldn't stare at files that remind me of what I lost. The drive-in was quiet, the car heater humming, radio playing some old country song. I told myself routine would save me. I was wrong. Back at work the next day, I sat in the break room, eating lunch alone. Coworkers asked about my dad. Is he doing okay? Their voices friendly, curious. I nodded. I didn't want to explain. If I stay still, I'll start thinking. And I don't trust where my thoughts go lately. My promotion feels like ash, achievement without acknowledgement. I open patient files, sanitize forms, sit in sterile light. It numbs me. It fools me into believing I'm safe. Later, in front of the shared desktop at the clinic, a folder catches my eye. Private. Dad, do not delete. I paused, heart thumping, not sure what rules I was breaking just by seeing it. I double-clicked. Audio notes, reminders, and a calendar entry. Dinner with Wendy. Cancel if she asks too much. Shadowed by an edited timestamp, hours before our last family gathering. My throat tightens, so even when he planned to be present, it was conditional. Betrayal dressed as consideration. I don't cry. I clamp my jaw. I pull the file down to a flash drive. My breath comes shallow. Flashbacks whir. Birthday dinners when he was busy. Late promises undone. Conversations ended with silence. I remember the sting that comes when someone says you matter, then shows you don't. Routine. It built a cage. At lunch, Rhea joins me. She's younger, new at the clinic. She notices my hands shake over the edge of my coffee cup. She says, "You always seem to carry the weight of someone else's mistake." I force a half smile. I speak. Some people confuse silence with peace, but really, it's just anger unpaid. Her eyes, honest and calm, reflect more back than I expected. She says her mother used to say, "If your voice shakes, that means it's working." I swallow. I feel the seed of strength. At sunset, I walk back to my desk. I open the emergency contact form. My name already there, my father's name beneath, but faded as though it's been hollowed out. I pick self instead. I fill in my own number. It's small, but for the first time in years, my reflection in that act feels true. I print it, sign it, file it. The flash drive sits in my jacket pocket. I leave the clinic with shoulders heavier but more real. At home, the mailbox holds a single envelope with Dad's name printed. I pause in the doorway. It's not addressed to me, but it's here. I tear it open. Inside, a note in Angela's handwriting. You said she'd never find out. Was that a lie too? My hands freeze. The light in the hallway flickers. Silence rains down. I read it twice. I don't understand yet. But I know this. Routine hid truth. And tonight, truths are about to be forced into light. The scent hit me first. Old leather and stale smoke, clinging to the walls like a second skin. His study hadn't changed since I was a teenager. Same dark bookshelves, same cigar tray, same overstuffed chair that swallowed him whole when he wanted to talk but not listen. I told myself I was there to grab an old invoice folder I'd left behind. That was the excuse. The truth. I needed to see if the man who erased my name had anything else hiding in plain sight. His laptop screen was dimmed but still glowing faintly. I nudged the mouse. A file blinked open. Property transfer draft. I didn't need to click it to know. The title said enough. I glanced at the other papers stacked neatly on his desk. Deeds, land titles. One had my name scribbled out in pen, not deleted, obliterated. He used to tell me the land would be mine one day. He'd say it like a promise, soft and warm. I see now it was never a promise. It was a leash. And I'd been walking on it for years, thinking I was free. The next day, I dressed up, not for them, for me. I walked into the company's meeting room in Bloomington, with my back straight, hands calm. They were unveiling some new business venture tied to family land, the same land he stripped me from. Dad stood up to speak. Jolene sat beside him, nodding like a wind-up doll. When he announced, "All legal deeds have been updated for streamlined operations," my pulse ticked faster. He didn't look at me, but I could feel the avoidance like a spotlight. Someone in the crowd, an old friend of Dad's, raised a hand. "Wendy, didn't you own the lot near the river? What happened there?" Dad didn't flinch. "That's company land now. Everything's been consolidated." My voice wanted out, but I kept it buried. Not yet. Jolene offered a tight smile. My brother just glanced away, like I was the inconvenience in their polished pitch. Later, in the cafeteria, someone asked me, "Didn't you used to file all the land documents?" They weren't accusing, just curious, but it split something in me. I remembered the nights I spent double-checking signatures for him, drafting letters, making phone calls. I helped build the structure they now use to lock me out. I left before the meeting ended. At home, I pulled every piece of paperwork I had, scanned copies, emails, contracts. I dug through online legal sites, property laws, statute of frauds, time limits, loopholes. My hands were steady now. I messaged Jolene, my cousin. "Did you ever see the original deed?" She replied almost instantly. "Yes, last summer. Dad kept it in the company safe." That was the break I needed. I copied everything I had, marked dates, highlighted names. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at the table. I was flipping the table over. 3 days later, at a local landowners event where Dad was scheduled to speak, I showed up early. Not with a protest, not with drama, just one folder in my hand. He didn't see me until I was beside him. I handed over the document. "This still has my name. Why did you change it?" Gasps. Not loud, but sharp enough. He looked down at the paper, then up at me, eyes flickering. Jolene froze. Mason looked like someone had slapped him mid-sentence. I didn't say anything else. I let the silence speak. Phones came up. Flashes. Whispers. Dad's hand trembled slightly. "You don't understand. This was for your own good." My eyes scanned the page again, and there it was, a clause. tucked at the bottom. Dated last year. Signed by someone. Not me. Then my phone buzzed. Nolan Edgewater's name on the screen. A message. Meet me tomorrow. I found something you need to see. I looked back at my father. He was shrinking. They hadn't just removed my name. They buried something deeper. Tomorrow, I dig it up. Chapter 5. The warning becomes a shout. I sit on the edge of my couch late afternoon, orange sunlight filtering through the blinds, casting long, soft stripes on the floor. The original contract lies open on my kitchen table, its pages weighted down by a mug of tea. I stare at the clause, the one with my name crossed out, over and over, trying to steady my breath. Tea gets cold. The silence pushes in. I reach for the remote. TV flickers. It doesn't help. I move on to small tasks, washing a dish, folding laundry. Every noise echoes. A memory surfaces. Christmas dinners where only Mason got praised. I swallowed compliments for him, ignored compliments for me. My voice shakes in the mirror as I rehearse what I'll say. Not bitter, but precise. Every word I choose must be truth. Then my phone buzzes. A message. Neighborhood council meeting. All families invited. My father's name on the invite. My heart knocks. I know what this means. Tonight, I'll be heard. I stack the contract pages, photos of old deeds, printed maps showing boundary lines. I refine what I know. When my name vanished, the date, the signatures. I send a text to Jolene. Do you think airing this now will seem too confrontational? She texts back within minutes. Truth seldom comes wrapped in gentleness. I pause there. That quote sticks. I think of something I read long ago. Courage isn't being free from fear, but standing up despite it. I practice in front of the mirror. Calm voice, firm facts. Avoid tears, but let every sentence carry weight. I imagine the questions they might ask. I rehearse. Which deed has my name? Which one doesn't? Who authorized it? What did you expect me to do? Watch you strip me silent? I set the documents in a folder. I spell out my speech in my head. I decide I will not stutter. Not this time. Early evening, I arrive at the community hall, folding chairs in rows. The hall smells of polished wood and stale auditorium air. Soft clinks of coffee cups. Father is already at the podium, slides projected behind him. I see a slide titled Community Land Parcels. My pulse leaps. My name is missing where I used to be listed. I clamp my jaw. Audience faces turn toward me as I stand. I walk to the mic, though everything in me says run. Excuse me, I begin, voice calm but trembling inside. Can you explain why my name, which was on every earlier deed, is not listed here? Dad freezes. Jolene glances at him, lips tight. He says, that slide wasn't updated. A polite lie. Someone coughs. The crowd shifts. I watch their faces, curious, uneasy. A few look guilty. My eyes burn, but I hold still. I let the awkward pause stretch. No one laughs, no one cheers. But the air changes. Something has cracked. Then a woman in the audience, Mrs. Darla Van Houten, raises her voice. Wasn't it Wendy who always handled the paperwork for this land? A ripple through the crowd. Dad laughs, soft and dismissive. Old tasks, not new legal claim. Someone mutters. Shame and surprise flick in people's faces. I feel anger pull tight in my chest. I draw breath. Yes, I say, voice louder. I handled the maps, the contracts, the land boundaries, until my name was quietly removed. A moment later, I see movement. Eyes flick away. Jolene claps slowly, too polite. The hall shifts. The side of me that has waited too much feels something fierce awaken. Later, I retreat to my car. Doors click. Wind brushes past me and leaves skitter across pavement. My hands wrap around the steering wheel. I think through possible reactions. Shame, tears, accusations. I decide, no accusation without evidence. I need proof. I need record. I glance back at the hall. Inside windows glow. I breathe. I bring out my phone. Maybe someone recorded. I will ask. Then I draft a request tonight to see all contract revisions. Dates, signatures, who saw what. It feels like armor around my ribs. Night comes. The sky darkens. I pull into my driveway. Streetlights flicker. By the door, an envelope rests. Unmarked. I pick it up. Inside, a photocopy of a deed revision. My name penciled in faintly, but crossed out. Below, a note in tight italic handwriting. You should have left well enough alone. A warning. My chest hardens. The document is real. The threat is real. But for the first time, I can't unsee what they've done. I tuck the envelope into my jacket. I look up at the moon. A silent promise forms. Tomorrow won't be quiet. I pulled into my driveway, engine ticking as it cooled, and just sat there. Inside the house, nothing waited for me but silence and a single lamp left on. I stepped into the stillness and dropped my bag by the door, my fingers still cold from gripping the wheel. Everything from the community meeting replayed like a worn-out cassette. My father's deflection, the crowd's murmurs, Jolene's clapping that felt more like a slap. I moved through the apartment like a ghost. A mug of coffee from earlier still sat on the counter, stone cold. I picked it up, poured it out, rinsed it like it mattered. My phone buzzed. It was from Jolene. Check your old photo book, it read. I stared at it for a moment, didn't move. Part of me wanted to pretend I never saw it. But another part, that part was done pretending. It was nearly an hour later when Jolene knocked. She didn't text, didn't call, just showed up. Her face looked smaller somehow, like she'd folded into herself. In her hands, she held the photo book, the old one, the one I thought I'd lost in the last move. We sat down without a word. She opened it, pages turned, birthdays, beach trips, backyard cookouts. My face was always at the edge, sometimes blurred, sometimes half in frame. Then she stopped. Her finger rested on a single photo, our whole family standing in front of the old porch swing. Only this version didn't have me in it. My spot had been clipped, neatly, as if I'd never been there. I looked at her. When did this happen? She hesitated. Dad said it was a printing issue, some lab error. But she couldn't hold my eyes. I knew. I didn't say another word. Didn't need to. Saturday morning I told Dad I was dropping off the photo book. That was the excuse. He welcomed me in like nothing was wrong, like we were still on speaking terms. Photo room's down the hall, he said, motioning like a museum guide. I walked in. The room smelled like varnished wood and lemon polish. Framed photos covered every wall. Milestones, smiles, carefully posed memories. And then, in the middle, our family portrait. The one that used to have me on the far left. Except now, it didn't. Just space. Balanced. We wanted the wall to be symmetrical, Dad said from behind me. Calm, as if symmetry explained erasure. I stared at the frame. I remembered helping pick it out. I remembered where I stood, what I wore. My hands clenched at my sides. Jolene leaned in the doorway behind him, arms folded. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. She already had. I turned to Jolene. You gave him that photo, I said. Not a question. She looked down, then back at me. I thought you didn't care anymore. You weren't coming around. I didn't think you'd notice. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just felt something drain out of me. That's the problem, I said. You thought for me. I walked out. Didn't say goodbye, didn't slam the door, but the sound of my heels on the tile might as well have been a scream. Back home, I sat on the floor, back against the couch. The photo book was open in front of me. A few old prints spread out like cards on a table. One had a corner torn, another had my handwriting on the back. Summer 1998. My name in blue pen, my presence proofed by ink. I should have felt angry, but what came was something quieter, something colder. What if they never meant for me to matter? What if I'd always been optional? I picked up the leaf-shaped napkin I kept in the drawer, the one from Mom's old table set. I used to fold it into little boats as a kid. I folded it now, unfolded it, folded it again, trying to remember where I fit. The next morning, a thud at the door woke me. No knock, just a package left behind. I opened the door, looked around. No one, just the envelope. Large, thick, no return address. Inside, printed on glossy paper, was a scan of our family photo album. Every page, every photo, and in each one, my image removed, my presence erased. In some, it looked like I'd never been there. In others, like the space had been patched with background. A watermark in the bottom corner of each page read, "For preservation only." My hands gripped the edges until they shook. Then I saw the note inside. We preserved what we wanted them to remember. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I just stood there, holding proof that they were willing to rewrite even the past. I woke up before the sun. Not out of habit, not because I had somewhere to be. My eyes opened, and the first thought that slammed into me like a wave was, payment reassigned. That phrase didn't just live in my mind. It had carved itself into my gut. I sat up slowly, legs over the side of the bed. The small candle on the nightstand, the one I forgot to blow out last night, flickered its last breath. My throat was raw. I must have been grinding it in my sleep. The apartment was quiet, but something in the air had shifted. I walked to the kitchen, poured coffee, took a sip, then spat it out. Bitter. Everything tasted bitter now. My mailbox was stuffed. Bills, flyers, then one envelope, bolder than the rest. Important. Response needed. Inside, bank records, dividends from the family land. Every cent that used to come my way, now rerouted. To Gregory. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat on the kitchen stool, staring at numbers on a page, feeling like someone had hollowed me out with a spoon. The money wasn't the thing, it was the message behind it. You're out. We're not hiding it anymore. I knew what I had to do. By 9 a.m., I was dialing the number I'd saved but never expected to use again. Mr. Keller, local attorney, had gray hair, a voice that didn't rush. He remembered me. "Ms. Rhodes," he said. "I was hoping you'd call back." I told him everything. The photos, the envelopes, the redirected payments. "I need a full trace," I said. "Every land transfer, every ledger, every payment log. And I need to know what I signed, if anything, over the past 5 years." He was quiet for a moment. "Have you ever signed documents just for convenience?" My chest tightened. "Yes, they said it was admin stuff, cleaning up records." His sigh was long. "That may be how they looped you out without technically notifying you." Then came the kicker. "We're up against timing. Some of these decisions have statutes attached. If we don't act soon, we may lose recourse." It was a lot. I hung up, sat still. Then came a ping. Marianne. I hadn't heard from her in years. We used to joke about how stiff Dad was, how he labeled even the milk in the fridge. She'd worked for him back when I still believed he had principles. Her message was short. I have something. You should see it. We met that afternoon at the park. She handed me a folder, old school ledger pages, photos of payments, some still handwritten. My name was there in ink, then the same page again, this time typed up, revised. My name gone. He asked me to do it, she said quietly. Said it would save the family a lot of tension. He said you were pulling away anyway. She didn't cry, but I saw it in her eyes. Regret. Or maybe relief for finally coming clean. I couldn't speak. I just nodded and walked away, holding the file like it might explode. Back at home, I sat on the porch. Dusk had rolled in, and the streetlights flickered half awake. I had decisions to make. Go full legal? Try to shame them publicly? Or do what they wanted? Fade out? Go quiet? Dad used to say, we do what's best for the family. But I realized that meant what's best for him. I opened my laptop, drafted a letter. Short, precise, demanding full records. Deeds, disbursements, signatures, copies sent to every relevant party, siblings, legal contacts, community board. I knew this would trigger backlash, name-calling, maybe threats. But for the first time in a long time, I felt steady, not righteous, just clear. The next day, I stood at my father's front door, knocked. He opened it wearing that same polite smile I'd grown to dread. Wendy, he said, like I was an unexpected dinner guest. I need a moment, I said. Handed him the envelope. His hand hesitated before taking it. What's this? Read it. I didn't blink. His eyes flicked through the pages. I watched his face try to hold. Behind him, Gregory and Maura appeared like backup dancers with no choreography. This is very formal, Dad muttered. It's overdue, I said. Then I read aloud the points, facts, names, the documentation Marianne gave me. For a second, no one moved. Then Gregory laughed, low and mean. You're serious? I didn't answer. I turned and left. The sky was darker when I returned home. Still humid, still quiet. Porch light spilled gold onto the doormat. Another envelope. No postage, no handwriting. I picked it up with 2 fingers. Inside, a photograph. My father and Gregory at a desk, signing what looked like a legal affidavit. In the corner, a third signature, mine. But not mine. The lines were close. Too close. Like someone had traced me instead of asking me. A note was clipped to it. Do you recognize this signature? Do you really want to fight this? I sat down on the steps. Envelope in lap. My breath steady. They thought this would scare me. They still didn't know me. The driveway was lined with parked cars when I pulled in. Warm lights glowed from the tall windows of the estate. I hadn't set foot in that house in months, but tonight, I didn't flinch. I wore dark green, sharp, grounded, the kind of color that didn't scream, but wouldn't let you look away either. The front door opened, and there stood Jolene with her staged smile. So glad you made it, she said, like a hostess at a charity gala. Her eyes flicked over me and moved on. The dining hall buzzed with conversation, silverware clinking gently. The table stretched the length of the room, candles flickering in gold holders, casting soft light on wine glasses and heirloom plates. Framed deeds lined the walls, pictures of fields, farms, land that once bore my name on the paperwork. Now just history, rewritten. I took my seat quietly. My heart thudded in my chest, slow and deliberate, like a judge banging a gavel. The attorney's words echoed inside me. About the revised will, the erased name. Mine. My father stood at the head of the table. Age hadn't softened him. If anything, it had sharpened the edges. He held a glass of wine and cleared his throat. The chatter died. Tonight, he said, we honor more than just years. We honor legacy, generations of Stricklands who built this land from dust. Heads nodded. Forks paused midair. And we honor the true children, he added, eyes fixed on Darian and Jolene, the ones who stayed, who stood beside me. I didn't move. The room buzzed with polite applause. I didn't hear it. All I heard was the absence, the gaping hole left by two words, true children. I wasn't one, apparently. Not anymore. Not in his eyes. I didn't react. I let silence do its job. Then he gestured to a man standing near the side wall. Nolan? The lawyer. To avoid confusion, my father said, we've made some updates. A final version. He held up a thick envelope, sealed. Nolan stepped forward and opened it. Per Mr. Strickland's instruction, he began, this reflects the new structure of estate distribution. He read it like a recipe, flat and cold. Plots of land reassigned, bank dividends redirected, family heirlooms listed. My name didn't appear once, not even a footnote. There was a pause, long, uncomfortable. Then someone dropped a glass. It shattered like a starter pistol. I felt the humiliation rise, slow and thick. I could have shouted. I could have stormed out. Instead, I stood, straightened my back, walked to the podium my father had just left. My voice, when it came, was even. I paid the taxes. I kept the lights on when this house needed it. I drove 10 hours to settle land disputes while others were skiing in Aspen. I held up a file. Here's Marianne's ledger, showing the edits, the removals. Here are the contracts, signed with my name, my blood practically. I turned to face him. Which parts of me still count, Dad? When did my loyalty become invisible? The room didn't breathe. Some stared at their plates. Others looked right at me, wide-eyed. No one interrupted. Not even him. After that, I stepped outside. The cold hit harder than I expected. I stood on the terrace, fingers numb around the railing. I pulled the leaf-shaped napkin from my coat pocket. Old, worn, folded neatly. I'd kept it from a memory, one that still felt real. In that moment, I realized I didn't need to win anything tonight. I just needed to show up. And I had. Voices carried from the dining hall behind me, low, urgent tones. I turned back inside, caught a glimpse, my father leaning toward Jolene, his voice trembling, barely audible. She knows too much. Jolene didn't meet his eyes. Darian looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Then, a man I didn't recognize approached Nolan. Carried a brown suitcase, opened it, pulled out a large envelope and handed it to him, in full view of everyone. I watched Nolan glance down. He hesitated, then looked up. My name, right there, bold, centered. I didn't move. It had been a full week since the dinner. Not a text, not a call, not even a passive-aggressive email. The silence was so complete, it felt designed. But I didn't mind it. I was back in Tennessee, where the trees had already started shedding. The porch smelled of damp leaves and cool air. Walking to the mailbox was routine now. I didn't expect much, just a catalog or one of those credit card offers. But when I opened the box, I froze. There was a single cream envelope, no return address, just my name in slanted handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My mother's, dated 5 years ago. I walked slowly back to the porch, sat down on the top step. My knees curled under me like I was 12 again. The envelope rested on my lap. I didn't open it right away. I just looked at it. That script, those loops in the Y. It felt like someone had reached across time to tap me on the shoulder. And finally, I opened it. Her words were careful, like she'd rewritten them more than once. She didn't apologize exactly, but she didn't dodge either. She said she saw what was happening, that she knew how my father dismissed me. She said, I should have spoken up. I didn't, and that silence cost me more than I admitted. She mentioned the will, said she knew about the edits before they happened. He made it clear I'd lose everything if I interfered. And then came the line that cracked me open. But you were always mine, Wendy. At the bottom she wrote, I planted a magnolia tree for you the week you were born. It's still behind the greenhouse. Look for the plastic tag on the roots. Your name's there. No one can erase that. I hadn't cried in weeks, but that letter did it. Not loud sobs, just quiet, steady ones. The kind that come from a place you forgot was still sore. The next morning, I packed a small bag and drove, not to the main estate, but the garden side of the property. The greenhouse hadn't been touched in years. Vines crept over the windows, weeds in the gravel path. I found the tree in the back corner, young but standing, and blooming, even in late season. Magnolia leaves, thick and stubborn. I knelt down, pushed aside some dirt around the trunk. There it was, a faded plastic tag, half buried. I wiped it off. Wendy Rose Strickland, March 21st. I touched the bark, pressed my hand against it. She'd done this quietly, no ceremony, no audience, just planted something permanent in a house built on temporary things. You remembered, I whispered. Back at my house that evening, I pulled out all the paperwork, copies of the will, the trust changes, notarized deeds. I boxed them up, taped a note to the front. History archived. My worth never was in their documents. Put it up on the garage shelf. Inside, I cleaned the mantel, took down everything except one photo. Me and Mom on the beach in '89, wind in our hair. Mouths wide open, laughing like the world had no edges. Later, with a mug of coffee beside me, I wrote in my journal, freedom doesn't mean they let me go. It means I no longer need them to hold on. I made a list of things I've learned, things I'd protect going forward. Boundaries, self-respect, the power of not reacting. I sketched out an idea for a memoir, titled it Rooted Anyway. And then the phone rang. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in me said, answer. Ms. Wendy? A voice said, male, professional. Yes? I handled your father's estate once, he continued. Something's come up. It's not in the public file. I sat up. It's from your mother, he said. She left instructions, said we were only to contact you if you ever came to the tree. My breath caught. The phone was warm against my ear. My free hand curled into a fist in my lap. She'd planned this, left something, and now I was finally ready to know.